So my name is Bouteloup from Bourke and Bouteloup Architects, here to present the South Melbourne Market outdoor food hall at the South Melbourne Market. So the market, for those who don't know, is bounded by Cecil, York, Coventry and Ferris streets. The project is just this little entrance here. On the facing the north side, this is a little zoom in. That's the size of the project, so we think it qualifies as small in the context. It's just a back of house entrance essentially from this car park. This is one of the main food halls for food produce, and it has very kind of minor presence on the street. The brief was literally to provide an external covered area for the food court, so this is like a food hall, this one here, for amenity for the users to soak up some of the north light and provide a bit of a focus to that entrance. It was also, the brief advised that it was a short-term project, so it could be disassembled because there's a master plan being done for the whole site and they're really at a stage where they don't know what might happen. So that was the brief, quite simply. This was the existing entrance, looking back from the car park, and they have the seating, sort of loose umbrellas and things. So they wanted to improve the amenity, making a kind of space where they could have functions and gatherings and things like that, and just provide better amenity as well as the focus. That's the site plan. So it's one title, but it just sort of sneaks in there next to a kindergarten. There's a lot of forklifts that move up and down. It's sort of, as I said, back of house entry, which goes through there, but all the pedestrians are through here. It's quite a busy entrance, actually. This is the footprint for the new building, so we wanted it to cantilever as far as possible and sort of float there. The idea was it would be a reminiscent of a market pallet, so the canopy is all done in timber. Timber is something we've been exploring in the office, and this is one of a number of projects which we've managed to refine more than others. And it just sort of cut away from an existing tree, landed on the ground in as minor a manner as possible. There was a big municipal sewer running down there, so we had to observe clearances from the angle of repose where those columns landed. It's a reflected ceiling plan. The three columns were sort of A-frames designed to minimise impact on the ground, so rather than big board piers where we could spread the load, these are just sort of concrete plinths to keep the timber up off the ground according to the code. And they're just screw piles only because we were aware there was contaminated soil, which we needed to avoid, and this was the one that was adjacent to the municipal sewer, which we had to avoid. So we had to sort of tweak the whole thing. And the idea was, literally just cantilevers with this sort of diagrid structure. It's all componentised, so it was designed for manufacture and assembly, so we worked hand in hand with the engineer and with the fabricators. So the design process was sort of all the way through to being on site. These were actually the shop drawings that came from the fabricator, and these are all the brackets that were used sort of to put it all together. I guess the other part of the brief was it had to happen really quickly, so there was no impact on the market, and that was critical.
Yeah.
So this was seen to be the quickest way to do it, have it fabricated to a high level of precision off-site, and then bring it in and literally put it together as a kind of Meccano set, no cranes, etc. So the design and manufacture and fabrication process proceeded into, these were the shop drawings in more detail, all of these sort of node junctions, which we worked up through the shop drawing process as well. And all the timbers were cut to 3mm tolerances. So yeah, these are some of the nodes, tops of columns, fascias, and just junctions. to assist the cantilevers, and it was all fabricated on this new Italian machine that Big Beam had, and every junction, rebate, everything was all manufactured like that. There was an assembly methodology, so as I said, no cranes, so they sort of put the whaler up, this one, then the big beams, so there's 14-metre beams, and then all bits just fell into place after that. This is some of the junctions on site before they went up, or when they went up. Fascia beam worked to get a nice tight corner, and everything, yeah, was rebated, as I said. It's a bit of the process. So they just literally used scissor lifts to do it, and it was done essentially in more or less in 2 weeks over August last year. That's the installation of this. They did, however, lose a couple of these nodes in the process, and so they were delayed in getting, so it took 3 or 4 weeks in the end. And they suspended it all like this, so that we could get a nice neat plinth underneath. So it's an interesting methodology.
So well, that's intriguing. The plinth goes in after.
Yes. Yeah. The little stirrup details that they were cast in. So just so that this was all, you know, within 3 mil tolerances. So it's easiest to do this, suspend it, and then have the formwork go around that at the end. There's a little cantilever junction at that end as well, which there's a tiny little bit of steel. So it all floats out, and I guess the angle in plan helps to sort of flatten it out as well, make it look perhaps a little more like a pallet from the street. And it's just basically a canopy there with light coming through, so potentially there's a bit of a gap there. There's battens for services, so FC sheet battens for services, because we had to sprinkle it as well. There's fairly intense fire engineering was required because of the market being what it is and the history of the market. And the A-frames there, that was it before. Afterwards, the A-frames sort of formed little spots for dining moments, but it's quite a heavily used thoroughfare, as well as being a place to prop and sit, and as I said, hold functions as well. And so that's it.